Welcome to or back to my channel. I wanted to go over all the books that I've read in the month of January because, to be honest, this is the best reading month I've had in a long time. This is my final semester at college, so the fact that I'm able to get so many books read, spoiler, it's about 15 in 1 month, is crazy. But also because I am still in college, I don't have all the books with me, so you're gonna just have to bear with me and watch me put up the sequels instead. So to start off, I started the year with a 5-star. And it was so good, and I seriously cannot stop thinking about it. I don't have the first or second book with me, and I haven't read the third, but I'm going to hold up the third. So that was Spark and Glow of the Everflame. This series, holy crap, this rocked my world. I've had such a bad reading year last year that the fact that I immediately started the year with a 5-star, I was absolutely blown away. This follows Diem, and she essentially starts out as a healer, and she's not supposed to know anything about this special royal family and their magic. And she's sent to be a healer within their castle because her mother, who used to do that, disappeared. And as the series goes on, it just gets so much more deeper. But I love the characters and the way that Penn Cole writes them. It's seriously incredible because she writes children very well, which is kind of an odd thing to say, but it is so nice to read because I find that's super rarely well done. And also, I think she does the love triangle so well because both the men they represent her leaving home and going to comfort at the same time. And you absolutely know who she's gonna go with, but the tension, it's just so good. This is classic fantasy. And I haven't felt this way for a book, literally since I read Throne of Glass when I was in high school. And I think I mostly felt that way because I was just starting out with reading. But this feels like that again. And I would highly recommend this series. I gave both books 5 stars. The next read I also don't have a copy of, but that is A Crane Among Wolves. I read this as a buddy read with my friend Akira. It's the 1500s in Korea, and they're following Korean history. And so there's this terrible tyrant that's just kind of taking over, and it follows two, one of the princes, and then this girl whose sister has been taken. She's been taken essentially to be used as men use women at this time. So it was honestly a really nice look into Korean history, which I didn't really know much about. And it was very unique, and I think it was well done. I just couldn't get into it, so I gave it 3 stars. But I definitely think I need to reread it at some point to fully grasp what was going on. I'd really like to listen to it as an audiobook because I love audiobooks. And I didn't listen to this one as an audiobook because I had the physical copy and I was buddy reading it. Next up, I read Our Wives Under the Sea. This was an audiobook that I picked up. It was so short. It was 6 hours, which is part of the reason why I wanted to pick it up, but follows 2 women. One of them has essentially just been under the sea, and she returns, and her wife realizes that she's changed. I didn't love this as much as I thought I would. I believe I also gave it 3 stars. I had such high hopes for it because it sounds really similar to my writing project, but it just didn't hit the same. And I can't really be surprised because I was hoping to just read something similar to my own writing, and of course it wasn't. I do look forward to reading more of Julia Armfield's work though. Next up, I read Emily Wilde for the first time. I'm going to cover both the first book and the sequel because I only have the sequel with me, and I love them both about the same. So I gave both of these 5 stars as well. Also, shout out to the Owl Crate editions. These are stunning. I would like to just show them off for a second. I love them, all their spines together. They're so cute. And the end papers are also so adorable. I love Emily Wilde. So basically, Emily Wilde is a professor of fairies, and her co-professor, who may or may not be a fairy in disguise, follows her on her work trip, and she's not happy about this at all. And it's just kind of like a bunch of shenanigans between professors who are like very serious but also not that serious, and there's a little hint of romance. Also, this is told entirely in journal entries and footnotes, and that is just so satisfying to read. I really adore this series because I love me an educated man in romance or in literally any genre. So this immediately was a yes for me. I also just love like the professor vibe. Like I love when people are educated. Big surprise. Next up, I read Watermoon. I have been anticipating this for a long time. This is the Lumicrate edition, and it is absolutely stunning. This follows this girl who essentially runs a pawn shop, but it's a magical pawn shop, and people can pawn off their memories. Then one day, a guy who isn't really supposed to be there walks in, and she is like, "Bro, what are you doing here? Get out." But he helps her after an accident, and they go on this whole adventure. I really liked it because it felt very like exploratory, but it's also so quick. I thought that this would be kind of a slow-paced novel based on the content, but it went fast. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. It was overall just like a really solid read, and I'd recommend it to anyone who's interested in the concept. I'd also recommend, if you're interested in it, don't be intimidated, because it is a very like quick moving intro level fantasy that has deep themes. It feels almost speculative, and also I think the art really resembles it well. I've heard this compared to like Studio Ghibli. I have not watched any Studio Ghibli stuff, but based on like the vibes, I 100% see it. So if you're a fan, I'd recommend it just for that. Next up, I have Yolk. I read this for my school's book club. Unfortunately, really no one loved it. I did enjoy it though because I think it has really good writing, but I didn't enjoy it because it is just an overall depressing book. Essentially, it follows 2 sisters who have had a falling out essentially their whole lives, and one of the sisters has been diagnosed with cancer. So I thought this whole thing was going to be about grief, but it's like about impending grief. I think a lot of people can really vibe with it, but also some people don't. It is also essentially literary fiction for young adults, though I would argue this does not belong in the young adult section based on the content. But it was really deep at times, and I found it to really stick with me. Like, I'm still thinking about it, but it was not at all an enjoyable read. And the majority of my book club agrees with that. But if you're interested in the concept and you're not afraid to essentially read 400 pages of the main character complaining about herself and being incredibly selfish, then you would probably find some value in it. It's just you kind of have to get over that jump, unfortunately, because she's kind of a jerk, like, the whole time. Next up, I have Methuselah by Amy DeBellis. This is a novella that she kindly sent me. I adored this. It's dual timeline. It follows a woman in the modern day as she's like coping with the fact that essentially the world is falling apart. She becomes obsessed with the Methuselah tree, which is the longest living being on planet Earth. And she's very afraid for it. She's terrified, actually. And then the other timeline, it's about her old rock band as they're touring. And they intersplice very well, but it just deals with a lot of big themes and also how the world exists today. I found it to be really worthwhile read. Okay, at this point, I have my first book that I read for class. I don't have a copy, but it is Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. I'm in a comics class right now, and we're at the portion where we're still explaining how comics and graphic novels and everything in between works. And because of that, a lot of these reads have been very dense. This is the only one so far that I can add to my Goodreads because I actually read it front to back. The rest of them I've just been taking chapters out of. It was fairly philosophical considering that it is an instructional book at times, but I enjoyed it for that. I love Scott McCloud. At least I did in high school. I don't know if I still do, but I loved his graphic novel, The Sculptor, so I had really high hopes that I would just fall in love with this book, but unfortunately, it was just so dense for me that I didn't love it entirely. I believe I gave it 3 stars. If you're interested in the topic, I'd highly recommend, but I wouldn't highly recommend reading it front to back if that's not your vibe, and it's personally not mine. I wish I could have taken more time with it, but I read it in the course of like 2 days. It is in comic format, which I really think is both meta and just well done. There's such few books documenting the importance of comics and also just the history. So the fact that this exists is really nice. I just didn't personally enjoy it, but I'd highly recommend if you're looking to learn about that. The next book I read was a reread. It is We Are Okay. I have been wanting to reread this since going to college because it takes place during a winter break as this girl is essentially staying because her grandfather has died, so she doesn't want to go home again. And so she's alone just on this college campus. One of her friends comes to visit. But the vibes of this, I just remember growing up and thinking, I want to reread this when it's snowing and I'm at college and I'm in a dorm room. I'm no longer in a dorm, but the basic idea of reading it while at college. I really enjoyed this. It was as good as the last time I read it. I don't know if it was as groundbreaking because I read it in high school and I've read a lot more widely since then, so it didn't stick out as much as it did, but it is still an overall fantastic read. I would highly recommend. I gave it 4 stars both times that I read it, and it just studies grief in such a way that I find to really echo, if that makes sense. The next read I don't have a copy of, and thank goodness I do not, because I really did not like this book. It is The Library at Hellebore by Cassandra Khaw. This was a miss for me because I'm not a huge fan of needless horror. I think horror can be well done at times, but fantasy and horror meshing and body horror, where it's just kind of like, it reads very like the author just really wanted to write it, if that makes sense. So I didn't vibe with that. I also just felt as if this was a Deadly Education, which is one of my all-time favorite trilogies ever. And the fact that this just felt like a blatant knockoff with more gore and less character dynamics and less getting to know the world and the characters, it just was a miss for me. So I'm very thankful that I did not buy that and I listened to it on audio. It is my book club pick for next month. I probably wouldn't have picked it up otherwise because I knew it probably wouldn't have been for me just based on the art I've seen online. But yeah, I gave it 2 stars, and I think that was being generous for me because I know part of it was my taste, so I didn't want to dunk it to 1 star. But yeah, my rating scale, 1 star is this should not be published at all. I have a moral issue with it. 2 star is I didn't like this. So I can't really knock it to 1 star at this point, but I didn't enjoy it at all. And I'm unashamed to say that, to be honest. The next book I impulsively picked up because I really wanted a lady night vibe. And this ate it up. This is Where Shadows Bloom. I enjoyed this so much. This is also the Dazzling Bookish edition, and I'll be so honest, this was a vanity buy. I impulsively bought it at the start of the year, and I'm so glad I did because I enjoyed it so much. I adored this. Essentially, it is about this girl who is trying to find her mother after her mother disappears. And her lady knight travels with her, and they end up at this castle where this king welcomes them in. She's like, why has my mom been trying to keep me away from this my entire life? So she's very confused, but she ends up going deeper and finding out some not so great stuff. And this is a little bit of a spoiler, but we get into some very supernatural elements and curses and world building that I just loved so much. I won't lie, this has plenty of plot holes, but I was willing to overlook it because of the last 100 pages. So I gave it 4 stars for enjoyment. I also found it very fast-paced. A major critique that I've seen of this book online is that the main character is annoying, and to be honest, yes, she can be, but they're also teenagers, and I find that the story itself and the uniqueness of it kind of makes up for that if you're willing to overlook it. Also, they're annoying in an immature way, not this is so high school, this plot's annoying. So I personally feel like I can overlook that because I understand still what it's like to be a teenager, and I'm around children pretty often, so I understand where they're coming from. So I would recommend, if you're willing to look at that, especially just the lady night vibe. It was so good. So good. The next read, I gave 5 stars. I actually got sick. And I started this the night before I got sick, and I stayed home from school. And this was part of the reason. I usually power through and just like mask up, take a bunch of medicine, and go to school anyways. But I wanted to read this book. I also was like very sick. So I finished this in one day, and it is Nothing to See Here. Holy crap. I have been wanting to read this for years. And I finally was like, I just need to pick it up, get it off my shelf, and find out if this is a book for me or not. It essentially follows this woman who's asked by one of her friends, estranged friends, to be like, hey, could you watch our children? Because we have like this issue and we're trying to get into politics and no one can find out, so we can't hire a nanny. It has to be someone that we trust. And the issue is her children light on fire, essentially. And it's not really her children, it's the dad's children with another mother. But yeah, so they're just trying to like calm down these kids and make sure they don't light on fire in public. So they're trying to hide them, and they're stuck with this girl who's essentially, I mean, she's her mom's best friend, but her mom is the reason that her friend ended up like absolutely failing life. So it just like works really well together that they're both like the rejects of the world almost. And they just have to like forge their own path. But at the same time, like the vibes of children being babysat, that sounds so weird, but I think it's so hard to write kids well because a lot of writers just don't really pay attention to kids or pay attention to how weird they are. And this hits the nail on the head. And I have sources because I worked at a summer camp for 2 years, so this fits so well. I love this so much. It seriously, I've been thinking about it since reading it, and I would highly, highly recommend. Honestly, at this point of the month, I believe I had hit 5 stars, which last year I read 105 books, and only 7 of those are 5 stars. And of those 7, 4 of them were rereads. So this is like a remarkable month for me, and I would like to keep this energy going. I have faith and hope. Next up, and for our final book, I have this audiobook. I actually finished it in the month of February, but I read most of it during January, and it's kind of like a chunk of a book, so I'm going to count it for January because I really only listened to like 1 hour in February. And that is The Art of Prophecy. This is the Broken Binding edition. I would say this is an impulse buy, but to be honest, it was in my cart for like several months, and I just finally bit the bullet and bought it, and I'm so thankful that I did because this was an incredible start. This is an Asian inspired fantasy, and the best part about this is one of the main characters is the mentor, which I know like you're thinking there's a lot of mentors in fantasy, like they can be the main character too. No, like this like follows her, and she essentially abandons the main character that she's supposed to mentor. So it's just like this old like woman going absolutely like ballistic in the world, just like beating people up and being like, you suck. And there's so much sass in this book. It is genuinely one of the funniest fantasy books I've read in a hot minute. And honestly, it kind of made me less afraid to dive in some of my like huger fantasy worlds, specifically just adult fantasy, because I've been growing out of YA and I really want to get into adult fantasy, but to be honest, it intimidates me because books like these are long. I believe this one isn't that bad. It's about 500 pages, but as I listened to it as an audiobook, and that was like 19 hours. 19 hours is a significant chunk of my life. So the fact that I got this done, amazing. But I adored this. I would highly recommend. Essentially, the beginning of it, this old woman, she goes to check in on this like prophesied hero. And she's like, he is supposed to save the world, and he absolutely sucks. Like, he is in no position to save the world. He's in no position to fight me, and I'm an old woman. And so she's like absolutely pissed. And then the whole thing, like the whole prophecy dismantles himself, and all of a sudden the kid is like on the run, and she's like, fine, I'll help you. But then she abandons him, and then they kind of all just go live their own lives. It was so nice, and there was such good character growth and setup of the next books. So I'm really looking forward to finishing this trilogy. I really hope it's a trilogy. If not, I guess I'll be happy with the fourth book as well. But I look forward to reading more of this. Then actually, I lied. I'm going to include one more book that I believe I finished in February, but I read majority of in January. And this is my gym book. So I read it like on my phone while I was doing cardio. And that is Love is an Algorithm by Laura Brooke Robson. I got an early copy of this thanks to NetGalley, which I love NetGalley. Thank you so much. Actually, more accurately, I love Justine at Hanover Square Press because I just be emailing her and she'll just send me free books. So, love that. I love getting books from publishers. So if you're a publisher and you're watching this, you should like just hit me up and I'll read the books you send me. Or I'll at least like haul them, you know? Anyways, so this essentially follows this couple. And one of them is like in the music industry and she uses AI to like make her art more quality, if that makes sense. And the other one is this guy who's he's invented this AI dating app. Not where you're finding a match, but where you're essentially testing your own relationship. And the AI is like, you're so and so percent compatible. And it just kind of delves into what AI usage can look like in the modern day and age, and also how it just doesn't really help anything. I unfortunately found this to be a miss for me. I really wanted to like this because I love Laura Brooke Robson's last book. It's literally my all-time favorite book, like, ever. And I mean ever. But I just really wish that the characters were more, like, relatable to me. I am not overly hurt that I'm not related to them or relating to them because I didn't really like them. But it kind of felt like they weren't designed to be liked or disliked. They were just kind of in the middle, and I didn't like them at all. And yeah, it was an interesting book to read. I have lately been reading a lot of like this subgenre of just weird marriage and dating practices. Like last year I read The Trunk, which is essentially you can rent a husband or wife, and that was really interesting. I have 2 more books that are like kind of that same weird dating app, weird AI sort of thing that I really look forward to reading them, because I'm really also hoping that they won't be a miss, because both of these books have been a miss for me, and that sucks because I really want to like them. But yeah, I believe I gave it 3 stars. I really wished that I liked it more. If you're interested in it at all, I would highly recommend checking it out, because there's so few books right now that are dealing with AI in this way, and I'm sure there will be more, but I'm really happy that that has become a topic within publishing in books as of lately. So please do check it out if you're interested. Go support Laura Brooke Robson because she has been killing it with some of her books recently. But yeah, that is essentially it. That's 16 books in the month of January. That is crazy. I know I technically finished 2 in February, but I'm not counting those because I read almost all of them in the month of January. I just like finished like the last 5% in February. So the fact that I got that much reading done while being at school and while like living life and having hobbies and stuff like that has been remarkable, and I really hope that this year will be full of tons of good reads. So if you got to the end of the video, please let me know what books that you've read. Have you had any 5 stars yet, and what are they, and what do you think I should read this year that will make me a happier reader that gets more 5 stars. If you want, you can hit that subscribe button and that like button and comment something. If not, that's also fine, but I would love to continue to yap about books and not just yap into the void. So if you want to let me know that there is someone out there in the void, please do, because otherwise I feel quite silly making these videos. So that is all. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and life if I never see you again. That's all. Bye.